the Berklee College of Music in Boston, Mass. She's a singer. She comes from a family of musicians, and we're super excited to have her here with us. Next up, we have Ronojit Bhuyan from London. He's got a master's in piano performance. He's got a deep interest in psychology and music, and we're excited to dive into that with him today. Next up, we have Madhulika Sharma. She's a model. She was born in Assam. She's been featured in all manner of international publications. She's a classically trained pianist, and we're super excited to have her here with us today. And last, but of course very much not least, we have Faron Medhi, the former Miss Teen USA, the first Indian and of course a Humya person to hold that honor. She's been competing in pageants since age 9. She's from Nebraska, and we're excited to have her here on stage with us. Thank you. All right. So before we get started here, I would love for y'all to introduce yourselves, in fact. I mean, we can just go down the road, just a quick, tell the audience who you are, why you're here, what you do, and what you're excited about. So, Faron, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can start.
Wonderful.
Hi, everyone. My name's Faron. I was born and raised in Nebraska, but my dad is from Assam. I actually went there when I was Miss Teen USA. It was a really beautiful couple of weeks that I spent in India. But I'm currently going to KU for nursing school. I go to KU Med, and I'm super excited to be here. I also do pageants, I model, and I'm a dance teacher. So those are just some fun facts about me.
Hi everyone, my name is Madhulika Sharma. I was born and raised in Guwahati, Assam. I moved to New York at the height of the pandemic, and I have been landlocked since. I am a fashion model by trade, but I also go to film school now. I go to the prestigious Stella Adler in downtown New York to study film and theater. I have been on over 50 editorials in my lifetime, which is, well, a career of 4 years. Magazine covers, runways, and I'm currently signed with Next Management, which is a global talent management company. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ronojit Bhuyan. I was born and raised in Mumbai, India, and I went to schooling in Assam, Assam Valley School. And I'm a graduate in psychology. That's why I studied in Mumbai, and just completed a master's in music from Trinity Laban in London. I use psychology and music as part of my direction of how I portray music, and I'm a teacher as well in a school there, and it's been a very interesting journey since then. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Shreya Pujari. I was born and brought up in San Francisco, and both of my parents are Assamese. I'm a world folk fusion singer, and I just graduated from the Berklee College of Music 3 weeks ago. I currently focus on blending Assamese styles and rhythms with other global traditions to increase first-generation awareness in Assamese music.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. I think it's really interesting not only to have a group of young people who are not necessarily pursuing the traditional careers, what we think of, especially for Indian kids, doctors, lawyers, and engineers and all that, but also from all over the place. I mean, some of us were born here in the States, some of us were born in India. Ronojit, I wanted to ask you about that, about what your thoughts are on as the younger generation coming into creative passions and talents and professions, coming to their own.
Thanks for the question. I think there are a lot of Indians that I know back in India as well that are trying to pursue this creative field and try to get into music, arts, dance, theater. Some of them do it as a hobby, some of them are planning to do it professionally, but I just think that if someone wants to come abroad, away from India, to pursue it, I think it's very important to have a fixed direction in their mind, what they like to do. What usually happens is that you finish your undergraduate, you finish your master's, and then you don't know what's happening. So I think it's very important for them to have a longer goal in mind of what they'd like to do, the place they're going, to have a research of that, and in general, of course, be surrounded by good mentors. I think in arts, that's very important to have teachers that would guide you right from the start. it's not like a random process. You switch from one teacher to another. It's very important to have a stable connection with them and kind of go under their guidance. And another thing that I would like to highlight is that performance opportunities. The more you perform, the more you are on stage. It kind of prepares you to be more used to how it works in the real world. And I just encourage everyone to pick up an art and just start performing for everybody.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Another question I wanted to ask. Madhulika and I have one thing in common, a couple things maybe, but one thing in particular in that we both have political science backgrounds. And Madhulika, you had mentioned something interesting when we were in prep, and that you wanted to speak about the politics of beauty. And I wanted to hear about your journey as a model and how those politics, how you think about them, how that affects your work and your life today.
Thanks. That's a very poignant question and something that is very current with the way of the world right now. When I first started modeling in India, I was all of 19 years old. I was scouted in college. And I remember, for the first time ever, being told that, oh, you're tall, you're skinny, quote unquote, and you have brown skin. We can use all of these incredible qualities as advantages, and we can market you. And so for the first time ever, when I was all of 19, I faced the commodification of my body, right? And what that did was it allowed me to understand how I can take a step back from labels and be kind to myself through these processes. So as I've gotten older and I've worked in multiple different countries, 4 fashion capitals around the world, I have come to terms with what the politics of beauty is. Now, the politics of beauty is very succinctly put into it is very succinctly summed up as the idea of putting labels on people so you can market and advertise to a certain section of society. So you have something called plus-size clothing for somebody that is plus-sized bodied. And then you have certain colors that are meant for people that have lighter skin, certain colors of garments that are meant for people that have darker skin. But then these are all labels by which, capitalistic society decides to advertise their outfits and their and products that they produce. So that, in general, is the politics of beauty. It is simply put as labels that will decide who is meant to wear what and meant to consume in a certain fashion. So if we can rid ourselves of these notions, if we can make ourselves just general consumers, but with conscience, then we're now trying to be a much more, evolved society. So that is how you can debunk the politics of beauty, and that is what I aim to do with my profession.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Faron, did that inspire any thoughts in you? What do you think about what do the words "the politics of beauty" mean to you?
I think for me it's a little different. I have been modeling since I was 12, and I completely agree with what you've said, because it is so true, and I've experienced that in the modeling industry specifically, which is why I've kind of taken a step back, and I'm exploring a different profession, and I'm going into the medical field because, I feel like committing myself to full-time modeling is scary, and also I don't necessarily agree with the industry and the pressures that it puts on young women and young men even. And that's also why I have such a heart for pageantry specifically, because it is a lot different. A lot of people think that pageantry and modeling are the same thing, but they're very, very different. The world of pageantry is not just about your surface level beauty, but it's more about your heart and your platform and your community outreach. And so I have been able to explore that industry a lot more than modeling, and I love it and I enjoy it so much, because when I was Miss Teen USA, it wasn't about the beautiful gowns I was putting on or the makeup that I was getting. It was more about the community outreach that I was able to make and the things that I really were passionate about. I'm an author and illustrator of a children's book, and I was able to read to over 10,000 students throughout my reign. I traveled over 100,000 miles in my year and made over 300 volunteering community events. And that was what it was about for me. It wasn't about putting on pretty dresses. It was completely about impacting the people around me, and it's also a very beautiful role model position, and that's what I choose to focus on. I choose to focus on the positives of life and not the parts that are gonna be more focused on surface level things, because that's not where I feel like my heart shines through, and that's not what I feel like I was made for, so.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful answer. Shifting gears a little bit, Shreya, I wanted to ask you, you just wrapped up at Berklee College of Music in Boston. Congratulations to you. What's next now that you're done? I know you had mentioned a huge interest in sort of the intersection of our cultures and arts, and I wanted to hear more about what you're passionate about, what you're excited to go after.
Ooh, great question. Well, I recently discovered my love for Assamese music again, and so my time at Berklee was spent learning authentically about other cultures of music and also learning how I can best represent Assam in an American and Western educational place. Now that I've graduated, I'm working personally on releasing my next album, which is going to take different Assamese songs that you might know and writing some of my own, and also blending them with Mediterranean, European, and other Spanish influences.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Ronojit, I wanted to ask you, your background academically is on the psych side. How do you go about bridging the gap between psychology and music? What does that mean to you? How does that affect your work?
That's a great question, actually. I think psychology is involved everywhere, At the end, music is a very tedious process. What you hear is the performance, but what happens behind it's got very repetitive work, and you kind of use your mind a lot more than your body. So it's more mental exhaustion rather than physical strain that happens when you play an instrument, because you see in the instrument, it's not like a full-blown gym, you're just using certain parts of your body, isn't it? So what I'd like to say is that psychology, I think, is related in music in a way that music has, as everyone knows, a lot of healing processes for the mind and body, and extensively used for cognitive rehabilitation and people suffering with mental illnesses, and for cancer patients and those kind of. So what happens is that when you present someone a piece of music that they like, automatically their kind of hormones start feeling good, and it makes you feel relaxed, and your stress is automatically reduced. So that's already a link between music and psychology of how both of them work. What I usually do with my research is that I would like to bring on how different genres of music, so let's say tonal music, atonal music, Baroque, I'm just talking about the classical field, how can these bridge together in a way that we can use for academic lectures in classrooms, and how I can promote music education and make it a part of a curriculum, Sure. A lot of people stress a lot about practical music, but it's a lot of theory that goes behind it. So I'd like to promote that more, the academic side of music, and how that can be helpful. In general, I would just like to point one example. Because I play the piano, we'll just take the example of that, Learning one piece in the piano is actually, it's related to a life event in a way. What happens is that you start the piece, you look at it, you see the notes, you spend time with it, then you get used to it more, and after a few months, you can play it. That's what happens with, I think, people as well. You get to know them first, you spend time with them, and if you like them, you spend a lot more time with them. I think music in general is like that as well, If you like something, it'll progress, and if it doesn't, it just doesn't, So I think it's very much linked with your brain and how you process what you like. So I think that's the base link that I would like to kind of enhance more going on.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Also, I would like to say, if there are any audience questions at any time, please just raise your hand. We'd love to hear, what these people on stage have you guys thinking about. So just raise your hand, and we'll get to any audience questions that we have at any point in time. One more question I wanted to ask the music folks as I've been thinking about this is, when you hear the wonderful answers that Faron and Madhulika gave about politics and beauty and the commodification of art, I mean, that applies to musicians as well, right? And in spaces that are not necessarily traditionally for brown people. How do you think about that? Does that affect your work? Does that affect your life? Shreya, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
The commodification of artists and musicians is a very interesting point. As a student of music, especially contemporary music, one thing that was stressed a lot is that we as a person are the product. My identity as a musician is what I'm trying to sell, and my connection to music is no longer a personal meditation, but rather a brand or a journey that I have to invite other people into. While that's something I personally enjoy and I don't mind at all, one thing that I have to lean into as a brown artist is that fusion lens, is that how can I make music but still keep that, oh, it sounds like Bollywood, or oh, this is special and unique because I'm an Indian American. So one aspect of being a brown musician that ties into the commodification of music is learning what parts of your identity you want to keep personal and private, and what parts of that journey you want to share and sell.
Amazing. Really interesting. Thank you. Madhulika, a question for you. What is a day in the life like of a model?
Wow.
Or all of the talented things that you are and that you do, not just a model. I apologize.
Yes. Well, so when you are an agency-signed model like I am, and you live in one of these 4 fashion capitals, life is, to be put plainly, is hectic. It's hectic in caps lock. You wake up, you have to just look at your calendar that is managed by your agents. So at this point, you don't necessarily have a personal life because you share a calendar with your manager, with your agents, and everyone is syncing in SYNC, syncing in multiple different events into your daily life. So each day is very different. I wake up, and one of my first practices is my self-care ritual, because that is what makes me unshakable. So I tap into myself, I start breath work, I start doing a little bit of meditation, and then I go to the gym, and that is in itself a meditative process, which Ron talked about, that really hones my artistic ability, which is performing on set for different demands for long hours each day, despite weather conditions, despite qualms, complaints, worries, happinesses, all of that stuff. So that's about creating this unshakable spirit within you. And you start with that. And then I log into my phone and I see that at around 8:30 or 9 a.m., I have client meetings, I have calls. So some days I'm meeting Ralph Lauren, I'm meeting Oscar de la Renta, I'm meeting Burberry, I'm meeting YSL. And then I always have a suitcase on standby. Now, this is very interesting. So I have 2 little suitcases. They're both carry-ons. One of them has summer clothes. One of them has winter clothes. And I will often be sent to a very far-off, remote location for a shoot, and I will just quickly Google what the weather conditions at this venue is like, and then I'll either carry my summer suitcase or my winter suitcase. So sometimes you have to travel with 3 hours of notice or 4 hours of notice. And then what do you do on the way to the airport? You're not playing Subway Surfers, or you're not playing, you're not going on TikTok. You're canceling your plans. You're calling your friends. I'm like, I'm so sorry, guys. I can't make it for dinner tonight. I'm so sorry, XYZ person. I know we had drinks planned this weekend. I can't because I'm going to Bora Bora, right? Or something like that. And that's how a day in the life actually kind of is. And then I obviously go to film school, so I study a lot of scripts. I have to do a lot of, inner dialogue work, a lot of chair work and all of that stuff, which I don't want to bore everyone with the details of. And then it involves meticulously planning what you want to eat. As much as diversity has become a center stage topic in today's world, the industry still is pretty regressive. And I want to be very honest about, just how the daily proceedings are. They're still looking at sample size as something that is trending again, partly thanks to Ozempic, which is, abundantly available at drugstore counters today. But yeah, that is a day in the life. It is not glamorous. It is extremely hectic. So when I'm on set, it's 10-hour days on set, 15-hour days on set from door-to-door pickup. So you have a driver come to pick you up at 5 a.m., or sometimes you have to take a subway at 6 a.m. You've barely woken up, you're cranky. But then you have to go say hi and be nice because like Shreya said, your identity is your brand. And to get booked again and to make money and to keep a head over your roof, you have to be nice and kind and presentable at 6 a.m. or 11 p.m. And that is how the industry truly is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's so interesting to hear about. To switch gears a little bit, Faron, I wanted to ask you a question about what does being a Homia mean to you? You know, we're here at Assamese Convention. It's amazing things that you've accomplished. But as a mixed person, so to be totally frank, my wife is American, and I've been thinking about this a lot when I think about having kids and stuff like that. So I'm curious to know more about your experience and what identity means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like growing up, I kind of struggled with it, but having my parents and instilling both cultures into me was something I thought was really beautiful. I think I'm very open-minded because of it, and I'm able to accept all different types of people as they are, as they come, and also enjoy and celebrate the differing cultures across the world. And I also think that that's something that Americans kind of struggle with. In general, I've seen that a lot, just growing up in American education and surrounded by people, even my friends. I feel like there's a lot of ignorance to come with Americans, but I also think that we're doing a good job at being a little more inclusive and promoting more diversity. I think that's something to be celebrated, but for this specifically, I've been competing in pageants since I was 8 years old, and there was never an Indian Miss Teen USA growing up. I never saw, and in the 45 years of the history of the pageant, no woman had won that had any kind of Indian roots, and I was able to be the first Indian American to win Miss Teen USA, and thank you. And that meant a lot to me, to be able to promote who I am and show other young girls around the US and also around the world that where you come from does not define you. It doesn't make you any less than, and it's important to celebrate who you are and also your cultural background. And then in 2023, I crowned the next Miss Teen USA, and she actually was also of Indian descent, so that was really special to me. We kind of started like a little trend, which I thought was super cool,
awesome.
and
Yeah.
It was so important to me to kind of show that aspect of who I am. But throughout my reign, like I said, I went to India, and that was also really beautiful to kind of embrace my culture a little more. The last time I had been to India, I was only 4 years old, so I didn't remember as much. But this time it was really incredible, and we kind of went everywhere. We went to Delhi, we went to the Taj Mahal, we went to Tezpur where my dad was born. We stayed in Guwahati for 5 days. It was so beautiful. I was able to work with hospitals there, with the Smile Train organization that Miss Teen USA is partnered with, and we went to underprivileged schools, and it was just so beautiful to really be in touch with my culture and also spread that on a national platform to all of my American the people and the society that is following me in America and able to share that side of me. So I really enjoy embracing both parts of me, and yeah, I don't limit myself to either.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We got any audience questions? Anything people are curious about? Question here. Okay, we'll start with, we'll go ladies first. Ajahn Tanti, go ahead.
Because I love all of you. Okay? And you guys
I'll repeat the question.
Such a wonderful job. My question is to you about creativity and how do you connect with the public and with your personal self? Because the connection in whether it is any form of art, whether it is piano, whether it is song, whether it is even modeling and presenting yourself, acting, we connect with that creative part of you. Is this something that comes natural? Are you trained in it? And is there a part that you keep to yourself to enhance the creativity within you? And it's for all of you.
I'll restate the question real quick, and then I'll let y'all decide who wants to go first here. But it was a really interesting question from Ajahn Tanti about how do this group of people as artists connect their creative side and their creativity to their personal side, because as we, the people who consume art, we're connecting with that piece of creativity, and sort of like what Shreya was talking about earlier, how do you decide what you put out there for the world for consumption, and what do you keep to yourself? So who wants to take it? Go for it.
Okay, I'll start on this. This is something I love to reflect on. I like to start by thinking that creativity is an invitation into vulnerability. And creativity is also a muscle that we have to exercise, similar to imagination. When you were a kid, you were always creative and you always let your imagination run free. But as I grew up into adulthood, I had to fit into boxes and go through systems where creativity wasn't always encouraged. And so thinking through and reflecting on my own emotions and practicing creativity every day and reflecting on whether or not this is something for others or for myself is a great way to start. And additionally, thinking as an artist that I'm a vehicle for emotions to flow through, and I'm really honored to be the platform that people can connect with and feel emotions through. Not everything is my story, but I'm glad that I get to sing other people's stories in a way that everyone can listen to and connect with. So that's been really helpful in navigating what creativity means to me.
Anyone else?
It's a great question, actually. As performers, and I'm sure as all of us in the audience and on the stage have performed a fair bit on the stage, I think the connection with the audience is very important. Music was written for people, so I strongly believe that should be spread and not be confined in a room. Coming to your question of how an artist expresses to an audience, I think there's multiple answers to it, but I'll have one personal view is that when you work towards a piece, or when you kind of have a piece in mind that you're working towards, you kind of give a lot yourself. So you have this personal connection with the composer that has given intentions to, and you have your own interpretation to it. Yeah. So what happens then is that when you're performing with such a personal attack towards the music, the audience connects itself. Bear in mind, one thing that's very important is that you need to love the music, you know. And if you don't, even if it's a non-musician or if it's a person who doesn't know the piece well, they'll be distracted. They'll know that, oh, you know, it's not going very well, you know, they'll look somewhere else. But when an artist is completely engrossed in their field, no matter who they are, they will attract them because it's that connection towards the art. So when the audience sees that, they already appreciate it. So I think connection needs to start from within first before I think others can appreciate it. So a personal connection with what you do is, I think, the most important thing for others to kind of appreciate it. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. All right, the next hand I saw was there.
My question is, see, all of you have listening to you for the last few days, wonderful, talented young people. What I suggest to you, and maybe you should maybe think about it or talk about it, is you don't have to be worried about, you know, brown, black, this, that, right? Just let your words speak for yourself. For example, today the Indian cricket team won the World Cup. Excuse me, we're not brown people or whatever. We play good cricket. So our actions speak for it. So I said sometimes, even in my team, I took the time, colorblind. Okay? So your action will speak for it. Be proud enough and don't think about brown, black, etc. Look at Dua Lipa. Look at Freddie Mercury. It's stop that, right? So that's what I encourage. You don't have to worry about those things at all. Your actions and your talent, be very proud of your talent. Don't worry about I'm brown or this. That's right, humble.
Love good.
I want to answer Ajanta Ba's question, if that's okay. Yeah. Within my field, creativity is all about collaboration. Because the garment that I get to wear is made by artisans from the grassroots levels. Every bead, every thread, every fiber, every fabric. My mom can attest this. She is the founder of Yarn Glory. But there is just so much craftsmanship that goes into it, and that is collective creativity, right? Because everyone is now bringing in their individual creative talents to create something that's larger than life, that's bigger than life. And my job is very humble. I have a very small job of just breathing life into this ready garment. It took 300 hours to make. I mean, everyone's seen the Met Gala looks, everyone's seen the NMAC looks that Neeta Ambani was hosting, all of that stuff. Those are all, again, hours of work that have been put, and yet those are unsung heroes that no one's ever saluted, right? I have the smallest job of wearing the garment and making sure it sells and getting advertisers on board and getting marketing teams on board and consumers on board eventually. So that is, I guess, like creative collaboration that will probably answer one part of your question. And the second part of your question, and the second part that is more personal is a way by which you can tap into yourself is by honing a practice that is uniquely yours. So for me, my yoga mat follows me everywhere I go. Because those few minutes of yoga that I get to do is finding my own bliss. It's movement that I find very rejuvenating, that I find very refreshing. So I think having your own practice that is very uniquely yours can instill a sense of calm and creativity, and you can always tap into it no matter where you are.
Any other questions from the audience here? Oh, please. Here. I'm going to have you go.
Okay, Rohit, I got it. And if the panelists can share the mic, responding, that'll be great. Thank you. Hold on. Sorry, Gautam, couldn't get the mic to you on time. Old people, takes a little while.
Testing. Okay. Just first want to thank you guys for sharing your stories and everything. I guess I have a question for all of you guys. Is what is your favorite part of your job, and like kind of what makes you feel most alive, in the sense, like most fulfilled?
I can start. So for me, I find a lot of joy in helping others, and that's what I feel like I was put on this earth to do, which is why I'm exploring nursing for my career and why I've always been interested in the medical field. As of right now, currently, I also serve. I'm a server at a restaurant. I think it's so fun. I love talking to people, and I also am helping people get food by doing that. But specifically for pageantry, the most rewarding thing about it is being able to impact the community. I went to so many pageants, so many events, and I would have young girls come up to me and tell me how much I inspired them, how much I was able to kind of touch the lives of others, even through social media. I was gonna say this earlier when it was like talking about how you connect with your audience. It was all about me being very authentic and genuine throughout my entire reign. I think people gravitate towards that, towards being honest. On social media, we have a lot of perfection, a lot of barriers, and a lot of stigmas around people, and I strove to break that down, especially around pageantry. A lot of people think that pageant women are just surface level and perfect, but I would post when I wasn't having a great day, when my skin wasn't looking the best, when I wasn't feeling the best, because I think those are the things that connect you the most with people. And the most rewarding thing for me was going to school appearances and talking about my journey with self-confidence, how I struggled growing up, and sharing my story and instilling that into the young generations. And also just being able to connect with people at various pageants. I would have Indian women come up to me and tell me that they wanted to compete in the system simply because I had won that year, and they felt discouraged before because there wasn't a lot of representation of Indian women in pageantry. So being able to break barriers and also just being able to see firsthand how much I'm able to connect with the people that were following me throughout my reign specifically was really beautiful and very, very, it was just rewarding for me.
So I'm of the opinion that a beautiful image can speak all of the 1,000 words and even some more. So the joy of creating a very beautiful image or a really nice film, to me, is purposeful. So I think that's my favorite part of the job.
It's a great question, first of all. I think I'm content and happy when I feel I'm doing justice to what's asked. So in terms of music, if I'm acting according to the standard that's required and others are appreciating it, if people are coming up and saying that the concert was good, they enjoyed this piece, that really gives me a lot of joy. There are few pieces that are in all fields of work. There are some weaker sectors and some stronger sectors, and I think the strong ones always come and the weak ones sometimes come, they sometimes don't, especially in a performance, in a concert, when the audience comes up and tells me that this piece really stuck to them and the way you kind of put in the emotions of this one really resonated to them, it really feels special because you connect, in a way, because you're producing that and you connect with the audience as well. So when the audience appreciates what you do, I think it really makes me feel that the boxes are ticked, and that's when I feel that, all right, maybe when I do something else, I expect a similar result. It doesn't happen all the time. It happens sometimes, but when it happens, it's great.
Yeah, I'll go off on that point too. As a musician and as a performer, I love connecting with the audience, and more specifically, anyone who enjoys music knows that feeling when you're locked in the crowd, you're all dancing together, you feel the joy. I mean, there's a reason that through the pandemic and even after, festivals and live music has still gone on. So I feel the most alive on stage when I'm able to connect with other musicians, regardless of language or their background, and also with the audience, and we're all on that same moment.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Really quickly, before we take the next question, I just want to mention Shreya is singing tonight here in this very ballroom. So please make sure you're here for this evening's program. And Ronojit, you're playing tomorrow, and Ronojit's playing tomorrow. So how about that? Make sure we're here to see those performances. So. All right, we've got another question over here on the right, please.
Hi. First of all four of you are so charming, and I feel so inspired right now. You guys are so fluent in everything you're saying, and it's just really powerful seeing you all four, speak up today. Thank you for doing this. I have one question. Disclaimer, I don't want to make it very serious, but I have been curious about this. So when we talk about artificial intelligence in every other field, right? I personally am not great of a makeup artist or a fashionista, I often struggle with that. And interestingly, a friend of mine suggested ChatGPT these days, if you input your, say, skin tone or your hair color, you have specific codes and everything. And that can tell you exactly how you should be styling, depending on your skin tone and what texture of your hair is and everything. So how do you feel your industry, I think, is being impacted? Do you personally feel threatened by AI, or are you actually using it for your own benefit? Do you see AI at all affecting your industries?
That is a question that I feared. So thanks for asking that question, because my job is very replaceable, to be very honest with you. But it is replaceable in a very specific way. You can create a still image. It's very hard to recreate images in motion. So any moving format image that has to, embody a specific garment is very difficult to recreate. So to be very precise, it can hinder my profession if it has to be a still image. If it has to be film, it probably won't. Having said that, there should be checks on AI, simply because the creativity of the human being cannot be matched. It is something that is very deeply personal, deeply vulnerable, and requires human experience to be able to have a human output. We cannot necessarily relate to what the computer is giving us. Again, we're feeding the computer. We're running it, right? So we're the bosses.
I'd like to add on to that. In music, whenever there's such a thing called digital audio workspaces, when that came onto the scene, there was a lot of worry and anxiety about how music production was now going to go away. All of a sudden, everyone could have GarageBand on their laptops, and there would be no need for an audio engineer or a music producer. However, there are still music producers in business, and in fact, everyone now has free and equal opportunity to create music. So I would say that new technology helps democratize access to music. So in the case of creativity, now AI has allowed many people to have the tools readily accessible to create. However, true artistry and true creativity is up to the artisan themselves, and now there are just more tools at hand. So I'm excited and interested to see how digital streaming platforms and other platforms like YouTube, or even the music industry as a whole, changes to allow and adapt and flex around this new volume of input that we're going to see.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions. We'll go start with Jontada.
Okay, first of all, thanks for coming to Tennessee. We're really grateful to you.
I mean, AI is obviously a big thing, but this is not an AI panel, so we'll not talk about AI. But one thing, Madhulika, was, you mentioned about threading and women, creating the garment for you in other countries, and then you wear that for 5 minutes, and you claim the fame. But that 5 minutes is also important, because you not only communicate for yourself, you're communicating on behalf of those women. So it's a total package, right? So the question I want to ask all of you is, what do you do when you have a bad day, but you still, bring out the best in you? So how do you handle bad days?
I think that's a great question, because as humans, we all have bad days. And I know when I was a title holder, I was going crazy. Like, I was just running around. I think I spent maybe a couple days at home in the summer. I went online for school. I devoted my whole life to my job that year. And I would get like 45 minutes of sleep, have to get up, do my schoolwork, and then kind of like how she said, almost like, you have to be very kind, very approachable, very warm, because I'm representing the organization, a country, for a year. So there's definitely hardships that came with that. I think it's really important to lean on the people around you. My parents are very supportive, and so leaning on them was very easy for me to do, and they helped me a lot through my year, finding things that I could do to pour back into myself. Like she said, self-care, or finding something that really works for you. I like to journal. I like to also just sing in the shower, or even if it's something as simple as getting sleep and just making sure I'm pouring into myself, eating healthy, which is something I don't do very much, or going to get canes because I love fried chicken. So that also is something if I was feeling down, I would go and do something that I knew would make me feel happy and feel good, spending time with my cats, talking to my friends, calling my friends. I think if everyone has bad days, but if you're able to do something where it makes you feel a little bit happier, a little bit peppier, and even if it's just taking time to yourself and locking yourself in a dark room for a little bit, that's okay too. I think there's different things for every single person that works, and you just have to find for yourself what works the best.
All right, we have time for one last question. Auntie here.
Great. So congratulations to all of you, and I'm sure all of you know that it is a privilege to be able to pursue your passion, right? But not all young people around you would be having families and peers who would support an alternative, unconventional. Those words are still used for the creative arts, right? I've heard that word all my life, So do you see around you people of your age or in your network that they do have a passion to follow, but probably they're not getting that support? Is that still prevalent? In this country, in India, it still is, because engineer or doctor nahi banega to kaise salary kahan se aayega? So these basic questions are still asked about arts. So do you see that around you? And what would you like to do to ensure that you propagate the culture of parents, seniors, guardians, peers supporting the arts for younger generation?
I can answer that. So I think there's, of course, a lot of people you see all around that are passionate and talented, but they're not really pursuing what they're supposed to. To a point, you can kind of guide them and even kind of pressure them to kind of really start doing what they like, speak to their parents, speak to their friends. But I think it has to come from within. So I think if you can inspire them in a way through external sources and bring them things that will inspire, but at the end, I think it's all from within. If the person is feeling that they want to pursue this in their life, I think it should come from within. But positive support, I think, in peer groups is very important, and empathy is very important as well. So I think supporting each other, no matter what's happening, is very important. And I think we look back and see that the support and love that we had from others was actually got through us the bad times. So I think support and positivity is the key here.
To play off on Ronojit's words, just as a follow-up, I will, offer some tangible advice here. These are my 2 cents. I think it's very important, number one, to strike a balance between art and commerce. It's a more realistic way to live life. And second, find ways and resources by which you can make ends meet by having multiple side hustles, right? If you can prove to yourself and prove to your parents, if your parents are a hindering force, if you can prove to them that, hey, listen, I have a backup plan. I've always got a plan B. Then you not only give yourself the assurance as an artist, but then you're also assuring your loved ones. So that's a more realistic way to, I guess, live life.
I think this is something that is so relevant and still important, so I really appreciate your question. I think that was an incredible question. I think for a lot of people, they need to do what's best for themselves, and we need to be encouraging the youth to do that. It's very easy to put people into boxes and expect a certain career or put a certain label on what success should be or what success is, but the truth is success is different to everyone individually. And I think as a whole society, we need to accept that. It doesn't look the same, it's not linear, and someone could find so much happiness in living check to check, but doing something they love rather than going to med school and doing something that they hate, but making so much money. You know, money and I guess a prestigious job or title, it doesn't define you. It's all about your inner happiness, and that's what every single person should be chasing after, and not the acceptance of a parent or a friend or any kind of pressures that they feel exteriorly. It's all about your internal and how you feel. And you have to be strong in that, and that's something that, growing up, I definitely got instilled by my parents, but my dad, when I switched from pre-med to nursing, he was so upset. He was like, why aren't you gonna be a doctor, Faron? But I have to do what's best for myself, and I always tell him that, you gotta do what's best for yourself, Dad. This is what's gonna make me the happiest, so.
All right. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for our panel. Thank you all so much for attending, but thanks most of all to our wonderful panelists here. If we could stand up, we could give them a round of applause. And as we walk them off the stage, we're gonna present them with certificates of appreciation from the presenting committee here. So thank you so much. Thanks so much again. We can move the mics and chairs and we'll walk off this way. All right. Thank you. Of course. You did good. You were wonderful. I got hit. Oh. They were wonderful. All right, again, thank you guys all so much for your time. I'm going to hand it back over to Tomoe.
A big round of applause for Rohit. I think he's awesome.